And he said, "Mom, what is it that's up with me?" And I was like, "Well, bud, you actually have something called autism. Do you know any other kids with autism?" "Yes, I do."
Hey parents of all types, Chelsea here from Mabel's Labels headquarters. Our co-founder Julie Cole isn't shy when it comes to the story of her eldest son's autism diagnosis. She shares with us this story and also how we can help support a parent whose child has an autism diagnosis. She also shares about communicating the diagnosis to siblings and how to communicate your own child's diagnosis to themselves. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our channel and click the little bell so you can be a part of our parenting community. And without further ado, here's Julie.
Hi there, my name is Julie Cole. I'm a mom of 6 and co-founder of Mabel's Labels, and today I want to talk to you about autism because my eldest child, who is now 19, got an autism diagnosis when he was 3 years old. So the things I want to talk to you about today are how you can best support a family or friend whose child has an autism diagnosis, or if there's a little friend in school, in your child's class, what can you do to make things easier and better for that kiddo. And I also want to talk about how to communicate the diagnosis to your child's siblings and also to the child himself or herself, because sometimes you need to out them. They know they're different, they know something's up, and you need to let them know what exactly it is. So we're going to talk about all those things. First of all, I do want to talk about how you can best support families. I'll tell you, like as a mom, the things that were most important for me. Obviously, my child being included in things. Sometimes our guys have a hard time socially. I can remember the first time my kid got invited to a birthday party where he was invited just because a little friend liked him and I didn't know the mother. He came home with this invitation and I cried and I cried and I put it in his baby book, and I will never forget the name of that child. His name was Jonathan, and he invited my son to his birthday party just because he liked him. So if there's something that you can do, if there's a little friend in class and something seems a little bit up, they might be that kid who doesn't get a lot of invitations for birthday parties. So try to make your child include them, see what you can do. And also play dates. I mean, having social opportunities are so important. If ever a mother came up to me and said, "Look, I understand Mac is on spectrum, but you know what? I'd like to learn a little bit more about this. Is there any reading material I could do? Anything you can share with me? Because I'd love to have him over at the house if you're comfortable with that, because he's an important friend to my child." Are you kidding me? If you said that to me, I would lose it. My appreciation would be so high. And you know what? We're moms like any other moms. We like to hear good things about our kids. So if you happen to be volunteering in a classroom and you see the child with autism, you see them growing and having some good interaction, when you see that mom, be like, "Hey, I was in the classroom and I noticed that, he's speaking much more, or his eye contact has improved, or he seemed a little bit more engaged." Hearing those things is so meaningful to us. So if you can include our child and tell us great things about our kids, that would be awesome. We're like parents like any others. We love that stuff. But you have to remember that our guys having social opportunities are even more important because that's how they learn. So if you can help provide them, that would be great. Don't be afraid to ask questions at all. We love answering questions because it shows us that you're interested in our child, and nothing warms a mom's heart more than that. So communicating their diagnoses. So for me, very much, because my son was born and then 15 months later my daughter was born, and then 20 months later another one was born. So we had, like, by the time he was actually diagnosed, he already had a couple of siblings, even though he had just turned 3. So in a lot of ways, they just kind of always knew and accepted Mac. And because there were always therapists in our house, we did a very intensive therapy program. Our basement was turned into a therapy center. So that was very much a part of just our family life. And our kids, our other kids, our neurotypical kids, were also integrated into his therapy program, because often you wanted a double session so that you could have him working with a therapist and then having a neurotypical role model. So the cousins all did therapy, the siblings all did therapy, so it was kind of just something everybody was involved with. But they certainly did know something was up with Mac, and they definitely became almost like his best little therapist. I'll give an example. I never would feed my son the answer because like I would always say, for example, I would say, I couldn't say to him, who did you play with at recess? Because that was too open-ended. I would say, did you play with Michael, Joseph, or Joshua? And he'd be like, oh, Joshua. And I noticed my daughters picked up with me doing this. And when one of them, I think Mac was about 5 and Posey was about 4, and we had just moved to a new house. We'd been in there for a couple of weeks. And I asked Mac to go get me a spoon, and he walked in the kitchen. He had no idea where to go. And his little sister goes in and says, Mac, do you think the spoons would be in this drawer? Or do you think the spoons would be in that drawer? And he's like, oh, I think they're in this drawer. So it's interesting how siblings just kind of roll with it, and they're, you know, kids, they're just so accepting. Now, when you want to tell your own child that that they have a diagnosis, it actually is quite a long program. So I had actually planned to spend about a year working up to it, and it would start with, you know, talking about difference and having programs around difference and talking about inclusivity, and then eventually it would be like, and this is your difference. So that all got interrupted when my son actually asked me what his deal was. And interestingly, it came up because there was a little kid in his Scouts group who something was up with. And we use that term around here very frequently when, you know, we don't know a child's diagnosis, but there's something up. So I'll be like, guys, you know what, that little girl at whatever, we need to remember to be a little bit more patient with her because something's up. Or we need to make sure we invite that kiddo for a play date because something's up. So that's a term that we use. And it was funny because we were in the car and I'm driving him to Scouts, and he was saying how this kid kind of does some weird behaviors and whatever, which, I mean, the irony of that. And I said, look, you need to be patient with so-and-so because, you know, I don't know what the deal is, but there's something up. And he said, Mom, what is it that's up with me? And I was like, well, bud, you actually have something called autism. Do you know any other kids with autism? Yes, I do. And I said, like, this is why we do all the therapy. This is why we did the speech. This is why you go to these programs. This is why, you know, because you have these areas of deficit that we need to work on, and you're doing awesome. And he's like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, that makes sense. And that was it. Here I was planning on spending a year gearing up to tell the kid, and it came out in the car on the way to Cub Scouts. So there you go. I don't know if any of you are working on outing your child to your child or to the siblings or to, I do want to mention one other thing about outing. And this was when we just got Mac's diagnosis. It was very hard. Those of you who are going through this, you know, when you get that diagnosis, it's a tricky time because you don't know what the future holds. Like I thought, am I never gonna have an empty nest? Am I gonna have this child in my home forever? Is he not gonna have social relationship? Is he not ever gonna have a partner? Our friendship's gonna be hard? You know, all these things, these questions, and without a crystal ball, you just don't know. So I wanted to communicate to all of my family and friends that he got this diagnosis. This is what we're doing about it. This is our attitude towards it, and this is how they can help. And it was a great way to do it. And this was 16 years ago, so I couldn't put it on my Facebook. I couldn't send, you know, a blast email. What I actually did was I wrote a letter and I made a ton of photocopies of it, and I mailed it off to all my friends and all my family. And it was a brilliant way to deal with it because I didn't have to tell the story 1,000 times. I didn't want to talk about the whole, like how we went through the diagnosis, what we noticed, what we were doing. So it gave me a way to communicate in the way I wanted it to be received. And then they knew, okay, we can help by doing this. We can help by reading that. I gave required reading to everyone. And that's a great way to communicate a diagnosis. I think it's a great way to communicate any news that's tough to deliver, even if it's like a marriage separation or a child with a disability, whatever story yours is, and you just don't want to say it 1,000 times because you don't have the energy, but you want to make sure it lands the way you want it to. that's a great way to go. And you have more tools now too with social media. So good luck communicating. And I can tell you now, I just want to have a little braggable moment about my 19-year-old with autism. He is living away from home at university in residence. He's in his first year. He has his driver's license. He is a lifeguard. He's got a black belt in Taekwondo. He's a great hockey player, and he's got loads of friends. So he's done amazing. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of money for therapy, but if you can do the things, beg, borrow, and steal, and do what needs to be done. But I want to tell you this, his executive functioning skills are still... Like, I'm still, like, the time management, the organization, that stuff, we're still on. So even when they grow up, they're still gonna drive you crazy. But hey, like I say, on my deathbed, I will always say he's my life's greatest achievement, and that the other 5 are okay too. Thanks for checking in.
And there you have it. Thanks for watching. If you have been enjoying what we've been doing here on the Mabel's Labels channel, make sure to let us know by liking our videos and send us a little comment and let us know if there's any other content you would love to hear from us. We're here to support you. So whatever we can do to do that, we'll do that. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Do that. Do. Okay, bye.